Have you ever wondered why we're here? Why, despite all our wealth, achievements, and relationships, we still feel such a deep emptiness? If you've ever felt that way, you have something in common with Leo Tolstoy. This giant of literature had everything: fame, fortune, a loving family. Yet he was consumed by an existential crisis that led him to question everything he had ever accomplished. Tolstoy, the author of War and Peace and Anna Karenina, was, in many ways, the Cormac McCarthy of his time. A man who, despite his success, dove into the same dark questions many of us face today. At age 50, Tolstoy stood at the edge of an existential abyss, a spiritual and emotional void so vast that, for a while, life seemed utterly meaningless. Even though he had achieved everything most people dream of, he felt trapped in an endless cycle of unanswered questions. Why go on? He asked himself. Is life worth living when everything feels so empty? This crisis triggered a relentless search for answers, a fight against despair that would transform him forever. But how could someone who had it all feel so lost? And more importantly, how did he find a way out? The answer lies in a revelation that might change your life, just like it changed his. Tolstoy had everything: money, fame, critical acclaim, a loving family, and a successful career. But deep inside, he felt an unbearable void. Night after night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering, why am I here? What's the point of all this if in the end I'm going to die? This growing emptiness consumed him. It didn't matter how many awards he won or how many books he sold. None of it could fill the emotional abyss inside him. He began to suffer from insomnia, intrusive thoughts, and a deep loss of purpose. Was life even worth living? Or was it all just a meaningless illusion? His internal crisis wasn't just personal. It spilled into his characters. Levin, the protagonist of Anna Karenina, mirrors Tolstoy's existential torment. Levin seeks meaning in love, family, and work, only to collide with the realization that none of it is enough. Tolstoy poured his own despair into Levin. The inability to find true meaning drove him into a spiral of hopelessness. Life began to feel like an empty cycle, without any logical reason to continue. He once wrote in his journal, "If not today, then tomorrow. If not tomorrow, then in 30 years. What difference does it make?" The shadow of death loomed constantly. No matter how much he accomplished or how deeply he was loved, the certainty that everything would eventually vanish robbed him of joy. He felt like he was trapped in a dark tunnel, walking toward an inevitable end. Death became an obsession. If everything was going to end someday, what was the point of trying at all? This fear of disappearing forever paralyzed him. His mind swung between a desperate need to find answers and the temptation to surrender to the void. He teetered dangerously close to suicide. But somehow, he didn't give in. Instead, despair pushed him toward a relentless search for meaning. Tolstoy realized he couldn't go on living in perpetual anguish. If life truly had no meaning, why did millions of people continue living and finding joy in even the simplest things? What did they know that he didn't? He decided he wouldn't accept the emptiness, not without exhausting every possible answer. He began a philosophical journey that would change his life forever. He dove into the great thinkers, Socrates, Buddha, Solomon, searching for truths that might heal his broken spirit. But every book, every theory, felt as empty as the last. Philosophy, though profound, couldn't soothe the pain in his heart. Its wisdom left him more disappointed than enlightened. Science didn't help either. Tolstoy studied Darwin and the theories of evolution that suggested we are merely biological accidents, living, reproducing, and dying without any greater purpose. This only deepened his sense of despair. If life was nothing more than chemical processes and random chance, what was the point? Everything seemed meaningless. He felt more hopeless than ever. In the midst of this mental storm, Tolstoy remembered a parable from his youth. A man flees from a tiger and jumps into a well, but at the bottom of the well waits a dragon. As he falls, he grabs onto a branch. From that branch, honey drips. He tastes the honey, and for a moment he forgets the danger, but he knows the dragon is still there, waiting. For Tolstoy, life was that parable. The honey was the fleeting pleasure of life, sweet and momentary. But the dragon, death, was always waiting. Was that all life was? Sweet drops of honey before the fall. Neither science nor philosophy could save him. But there was something else he hadn't yet explored. Faith. He began to look at how ordinary people coped with existence. He noticed 4 common ways people responded to life's emptiness. 1. Ignorance. Some people simply never think about life's meaning. They live without reflecting, without asking questions. Like Albert Camus said, they accept life's absurdity and just go on. Tolstoy saw this as shallow and ultimately unsustainable. How can you live fully if you never confront what's beneath the surface? 2. Pleasure-seeking others turn to pleasure, money, sex, entertainment, to escape the void. But like the honey in the parable, pleasure is fleeting. No matter how sweet, it doesn't stop the fall. 3. Despair. Some fell into despair, sometimes ending in suicide. Tolstoy himself came close, but something deep inside told him not to give up. Even in the darkest moment, a sliver of hope remained. Limbo. The worst response, he thought, was passive existence. People who recognize life's emptiness, but do nothing. They don't seek meaning. They just float through life, like ghosts. To Tolstoy, this was the saddest way to live. Eventually, he began observing Russian peasants, people with little money, little education, yet full of peace and purpose. They weren't obsessed with philosophical questions. They simply lived, with humility, with faith. And they had something Tolstoy had lost: inner peace. This changed everything. He realized the answer wasn't in logic or endless study. It was in something deeper. Faith became his light in the darkness. Not the kind of faith that demands logical proof, but the kind that offers comfort and purpose when reason fails. Tolstoy found peace not through answers, but through acceptance, simplicity, and service. He gave up his riches. He chose a humble life, helping others, living with intention, and embracing faith. He discovered that the true meaning of life isn't in material wealth or personal achievement. It's in living with purpose, serving others, embracing humility, finding peace in something greater than yourself. The lesson is clear. Life without purpose is empty. But a life rooted in faith, simplicity, and love becomes deeply meaningful. You don't need all the answers right away. Like Tolstoy, you can search, you can question, and you can find peace, even in the uncertainty. So now I want to hear from you. Do you believe, like Tolstoy, that purpose can be found beyond logic and the everyday grind? How do you deal with your own existential questions? Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more reflections on the meaning of life. Remember, life is a journey. How will you choose to live it?